Hi fiber friend, I'm Jess. Welcome back to the channel where I talk about all of my adventures in knitting. This is episode 4 and the second part of my Rhinebeck series. If you missed the first part, I will link it down below. This feels very timely because, as you may know, Andrea Mowry dropped her Rhinebeck sweater this week. It is the Antipodes. I love this pattern. No notes. I love it. I love the saddle shoulders, the striping detail on the back. I love the wave construction of the color work in the front. This piece feels very nostalgic to me. This is speaking to like 80s and 90s fashion. These were tropes and designs that were common when I was in like high school. When I saw this sweater come out, the first thing I thought was, this is what the cool kids were wearing in high school in the 90s. So I love everything about this pattern. Junction Fiber Mill also dropped their Fall Festival Knit-Along sweater, the 1111 by Logan Lene. This sweater also speaks to my 90s nostalgia with these vertical stripes. This is a mosaic pattern. The stripes are achieved through mosaic knitting, and I really love the details on the sides. And again, both of these samples were knitted up in very electric colors, which again, I love. Very 90s, very hot and bold and unique. I love both of these patterns. I won't be knitting either of them. I'm very tempted to, and I'm trying really hard not to. I have never knit a sweater. You may have noticed on this channel, I don't show any sweaters. I haven't knit any sweaters. I haven't knit any fitted garment yet. If you have been following along here on the channel for a while, or if you've been following me on Instagram, you may have noticed I'm shrinking. I'm shrinking a lot. This has been in the works for about 1.5 years now. So since the time I started knitting again, I knew this was coming. I didn't want to put the time into a knitted garment, knowing that it would immediately not fit. So I haven't knit a sweater, but looking at these two patterns, it really, really makes me want to knit them, but I'm trying to resist. I still have quite a bit more weight to lose, and I don't want this beautiful sweater to immediately not fit. I do know there are ways to adjust a knitted garment if it does become too big. Mark Vogel just posted a video on adjusting knitted garments that I thought was really fantastic, and I'll link it down below. I love Mark's vision. He has a unique way of looking at things that is different than anything I would have thought of. So I love watching his channel for the inspiration. So those are the two Rhinebeck sweaters. Junction Fiber Mill does call their sweater a fall festival sweater because, as I mentioned in the episode last week, Vermont Sheep and Wool is 2 weekends before Rhinebeck. So they do a sweater to encapsulate the fall festival season. So today I'm going to go through all of the things that I purchased at Reinbeck last year, both yarn, non-yarn. I have a couple of books and a project bag that I want to talk about too that I picked up last fall. And I'm also going to get into what I'm going to be doing differently this year, both based on my experience from last year and also based on how I have changed as a knitter over the past year. So let's look at some yarn. First thing I'm going to talk about are the yarns that I've already used to make projects. So the first one is a Bessie scarf, and this is a pattern by Gabriella Treminio, and this is knit in Yarn Matter yarn. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera. I really hope it does. There is the subtlest variation in color in this yarn. Yarn Matter is an independent dyer. They ethically source their yarn and naturally dye the base. This particular base is their Luxe DK, so it's 60% merino, 40% silk. I knit this scarf a little bit longer, So I knew I wanted it to have a really nice drape, and it really does. That little bit of silk gives it the nicest drape. And this is the colorway Blackberry Season. I love how this knitted up, and I loved working with the yarn. I will be stocking up on Yarn Matter when I see her at Woolen Affair this year. That pattern as well, the Bessie scarf, I will link it below to my project page on Ravelry so you can go see my notes on it. It's very beginner friendly. So if you are a newer knitter and you're looking to do a more challenging pattern, that pattern is all garter stitch with some yarn overs. That's what makes the eyelets. Very beginner friendly. So that's the first yarn, Yarn Matter. This is my second one. This is Lavender Loon, again, an independent dyer, and I've used it to knit the Honey Cowl by Antonia Shankland. And I hope it shows up on camera, not only the variety in the color, in the variegation, but also the incredible stiff definition. I don't think I could have found a more perfect pattern for this yarn. And if you've watched previous episode, you know this was my rebound pattern, my Honey Cowl. Lavender Loon is 100% merino DK, and again, an independent dyer. This was their exclusive colorway for Woolen Affair last year. It's called All Hallows on the Hudson. Again, I will be going back to Lavender Loon this year, and I will probably be trying to snatch the exclusive colorway for Woolen Affair because it's just so fun. And I would love to knit another accessory with their yarn. So a couple of projects that I did with yarn I picked up at a Woolen Affair last year, I don't have because one of them was a gift, and I'll insert a photo of it here. This is just a really simple hat, stockinette stitch, knit flat, and then seamed. I used Farmer's Daughter for this. This is their worsted weight. And then I also picked up this Farmer's Daughter, and it's caked because I was going to use it. And of course, I didn't keep the label for it, and I don't remember what I was going to use it for. But I want to say this about Farmer's Daughter. This is the first time I actually got to squish their yarn. I got to use it. The hat that I made for my mother. She had requested it. I had knit a similar hat to that one a little while ago. She saw it. She wanted one exactly like it. So I knit her a hat for Christmas, and I gifted it to her. My mother washes everything in the washing machine on temperature of inferno. It is the hottest the washing machine will go. And when she asked me to knit her a hat, I said, okay, we're going to talk about this. This is how you care for really nice wool, especially Farmer's Daughter wool. I was like, this is what you have to do to take care of this and keep it nice and give it a long life. She immediately put it in the washing machine and cooked it, and then into the dryer and dried the heck out of it. It survived. It survived really well. I was so impressed. So I will be looking at Farmer's Daughter in the future if I'm ever going to knit something that I really want to last for a long time and that might go through a lot of wear. I think their yarn will really, really hold up. I was impressed. So that is all of the projects I've done, and then the one-off yarns that I got that I made gifts with, and the one that I can't remember what I got it for or why I caked it. But it's beautiful, and I'm sure I'll use it soon. I also picked up yarn for a couple of projects that I haven't done yet. So let's talk about those. The first one is what is quickly becoming a staple in my toolbox when I want to experiment with color. And of course, you know what I'm going to say. It's Spin Cycle. Spin Cycle was at Woolen Affair. This was my first time squishing Spin Cycle 2. They are now a go-to for me when I have an accessory or something that calls for a little bit of color, when I really want to do something fun with the color. And I'll bring these closer to the camera so you can see them. These are Dream State. So this is their worsted weight, and I have 6 skeins of it. I purchased this with the intention of doing the Inclinations Shawl by Andrea Mowry. So I'll hold these closer to the camera so you can see them. I like this one for that unexpected blue in there. It just gives it that fresh pop of color. This is Wololo. And then this one is Wild Horses. And for this, I love that teal. Again, the variegated color is just amazing. I love the fresh ways that they tackle color and the interesting ways that they present them. So again, whenever I'm looking for color, looking to experiment with color, I go to Spin Cycle first. The thing about Spin Cycle, I tend to think of things in scientific terms. So like the scientific equation. You have x plus y equals z. And when you're doing a scientific experiment, you only want to change one factor. So if I'm learning a new technique or doing a new pattern, I tend to rely on a yarn I'm very familiar with, and I know how it will knit up and how it will bloom and how it will be to work with it, because then the only changeable factor is the technique or the pattern that I'm working on. The yarn won't be a new factor for me. So that tends to be why I rely on Spin Cycle as a new knitter, and as I'm learning new things, this is sort of the safe bet for me. I picked up the Wild Horses colorway for a very funny reason. Yes, I do really love it, and I think it goes great with Wololo, but senior year of high school, this is a really funny story, and it makes my husband laugh all the time when I bring this up. Senior year of high school, our English teacher had us write a letter to our future selves that we then opened when we were 28 years old. And in that letter, you wrote where you thought you would be at 28. And of course, when you're 18, 28 seems so far away. You imagine all kinds of things that you will have accomplished by then. But I did undergrad and then I did grad school. So I didn't even graduate from college until 27. So I hadn't done a whole lot by the time I was 28. I had done a lot of schooling. But in my letter, I wrote that I was going to live on a horse farm in Montana. I don't have an affinity for horses. I never have. I don't know why I wrote that I was going to be living on a horse farm in Montana. I don't know what I was reading at the time, what movie I had seen that inspired the horse farm in Montana. But when I saw wild horses, I thought, that's a sign. I have to get that color. I haven't even been to Montana yet. It's still a to be visited pin on our adventure map. Soon, hopefully, it will be a visited pin. It's really a priority for us, and we got so close a year ago. We were in Yellowstone, but we never went over to Montana, which would have been the northwest exit. We did every other exit out of the park, but that one. So we got really close, but didn't quite make it. Hopefully one day. So the other project that I got yarn for that I haven't made yet, this one is really fun. This is a vendor called U to Yarn. And U to Yarn does mini skein swirls. So this is a regular swirl set. So there are 5 minis in each swirl. So I'll hold that up so you can see it. This is a fingering weight yarn, 100% merino. It's very soft. And then for this one, there's a little bit of sparkle in it. And you can see the sparkle. So using these two swirl sets together, you can make up their pattern called the 10-day cowl. 1 skein per day, that's why it's called the 10-day cowl. They also do super swirls, and you can make this gorgeous shawl with their super swirls. I just really loved these colors. These colors spoke to me. I will be knitting this up soon because with all these oranges in here, I really want this done for fall. Again, that's U to Yarn. It's a fingering weight, 100% merino. Very fun yarn. So those are the 2 that I bought with patterns in mind. I have another yarn, and I'm going to insert a picture of it here because I had knitted up part of 1 skein. I have 2 skeins of it. It is a spin cycle yarn. It is the exclusive colorway though for Port Fiber, which is a fiber store in Portland, Maine. And the colorway is called Night Bloom. And I'll put the photo here because right now they're caked and the cake does not do it justice. I love the bold electric colors in this yarn. When Andrea Mowry's Antipodes came out and I saw her sample and the color she was wearing, I immediately thought of this yarn. So this is another reason why I have to resist knitting that sweater for now. I could probably knit it in the future, but I need to resist it for now. But these colors are really speaking to me for that really nostalgic design. If you have a recommendation for a pattern that I can use these skeins for, this is a sport weight yarn. I have 2 skeins, so it's about, let's see, I think the sport weight is like 200 yards a skein. I'm worried that these skeins are going to end up being like sacred and I'll be too nervous to use them. Do you often end up with skeins like that where it's a special skein and you can't ever figure out what's good enough to use it? Let me know in the comments if you have those sacred skeins. So that is all of the yarn that I got at a woolen affair. The thing that I wanted to mention is that what came out of my entire Rhinebeck weekend is that it introduced me to vendors that I may not have purchased yarn from, but I then got to know them. So then over the course of the past few months when I was going to knit projects and I was looking for yarn, I went to vendors that I had met at these festivals, but I hadn't necessarily purchased yarn from, and one of them is Harrisville Designs. Harrisville Designs is right here in New Hampshire. They are a local yarn maker for me, and I got to go to their shop in Harrisville, New Hampshire. And I purchased this. This is their Peace Fleece. This is so lofty and airy and squishy. I had purchased this with the intention to make a hat, but it is too lofty and I couldn't get the stitch definition that I wanted for the hat. So again, I'll be saving it for something wonderful because this yarn is really, really great. So that is it for yarn that I purchased that weekend. I did not purchase any yarn at New York Sheep and Wool. And as I mentioned in my last video and a couple of videos before that, the crowds were really, really intense at New York Sheep and Wool. I also had a limited time at New York Sheep and Wool, and this year it will be different. I will have much more time there. I'm prepared for the crowd, so I know going in that I'll need a plan. I also had that intention when I was going into New York Sheep and Wool last year. It was reconnaissance mission. I was going in to gather information. I was not going into New York Sheep and Wool to buy yarn. I had done that the day before at Woolen Affair. So going into New York Sheep and Wool, I just wanted to experience it. I just wanted to see what it was about, and I did that. So my goal was achieved in that sense. So now I want to talk about the other things that I got on Rhinebeck weekend that are not yarn. So I had mentioned in my last video that there were a couple of books that I wanted to get at New York Sheep and Wool, and this is one of them, Brioche Knitting Workshop by Lavanya Patricella. And she was there, so she's actually signed this book for me, which as a book nerd, you know, is very exciting. I follow her on Instagram, and I enjoy what she does with brioche. Last year, she was knitting an entire dress out of scraps, and she was wearing the dress at New York Sheep and Wool. So it was so cool to see her there and to be able to get her book. The other book that I picked up at New York Sheep and Wool is The Wonder of Wool. And this is by Justine Lee and Jess Morency. I have gone back to this book several times over the past year. You will see I have notes in it. This is an incredible book. Even if you've been knitting for your whole life, this book is full of helpful information that will inform your yarn choices when you're approaching a new pattern. I wish I had understood how a wool is spun and how it affects what that yarn is then going to look like in a pattern before I had attempted some of the patterns I have over the past year. So now that I have this book, now that I understand how to use it, it's really informing my yarn choices. And I don't think you can go to a fall festival without getting a new project bag. This is my favorite project bag. This is from the Running Your Wool Company. This little cutie here is Clover. I love this bag because it is so generous and it has really durable straps on it. I use this a lot. It's gotten a lot of wear over the past year. She will be at Wool and Fair again this year, and she will be my first stop. So let's talk about why. That's all the things that I got at Rhinebeck. Now we're going to talk about what I'm going to be doing differently this year when I go to Rhinebeck. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how I've changed as a knitter over the past year. I always think in any aspect of your life, in order to make a decision, you first have to understand what your priorities and what your values are. And that often will inform the decisions that you make. And over the past year, I've changed and evolved as a knitter, and I've come to really establish the things that are important to me. And those are sustainability, animal welfare, and environmentally friendly practices. So now when I'm approaching small dyers or farm yarn producers, I'm going to be asking what their sustainability practices are, what their animal welfare practices are. And the thing about the animal welfare practices is a lot of these small farm yarn producers are on Instagram. So you can actually see them interacting with their flocks. You can see the sheep that you're going to get the wool from, and you understand how they're being cared for and if they're living a good life. And that's really important to me. So that's a great thing that I'm doing now, is to go follow these people on Instagram and see how they're caring for their sheep, see how the sheep are. Because those are the things that are important to me. And building on top of that, when I'm looking at a small dyer's yarn, I'm going to be asking them, what are their processes? Are you using natural dyes? What is it that's going to be touching my skin when I knit something with this yarn? So the other thing, and as I've mentioned already, farm yarn. I'm in my farm yarn era. We're just going to accept that. I picked up this farm yarn last week at Must Love Yarn in Shelburne, Vermont. That was probably the best yarn store I've ever been in. I will post another video here on YouTube about my full experience at Must Love Yarn, so you can check that out. But this is the yarn that I got there, and I don't know if it will come up on camera because it is so subtle. This is an undyed natural fleece skein. You can see all the variety of color in there. There's little shots of gray all through that cream colored yarn. And I just love that. I love the variety that's found in nature and the colors that just naturally occur around us. And to be able to capture it in a yarn is just incredible to me. And I've really been leaning heavy into the farm yarn. So this year at Wool and Fair and New York Sheep and Wool, I will be targeting farm yarn. This will be my main goal. I already have a list of vendors, as you know from previous videos. I download that vendor list as soon as possible, and I prioritize the vendors that I want to go to, and they will be farm yarn. You will notice that the projects that I made in the past year are accessories, and as I've explained, I'm shrinking, so I haven't wanted to make any garments that I will immediately be too small for. So this year what will be different is I will be purchasing sweater quantities of yarn instead of 1 or 2 skeins. Now, that being said, a great way to find a new favorite yarn or to try out a new dyer, a new producer, is by doing a 1 skein project. So just committing to 1 skein of their yarn, trying it out, testing it out on a small project, and deciding whether or not you really like it. That is a low risk way of discovering new favorite yarns. So the other thing that I'm doing differently this year is I'm going to Indian Tangled. As I mentioned in my last video, I didn't know what Rhinebeck was at this time last year, so I went very last minute, and I had a limited amount of time that I was actually spending in Rhinebeck that weekend. So this year I've made a plan to be able to attend Wool and Fair and Indian Tangled on the Friday before New York Sheep and Wool. I have already downloaded the vendor list. I've already made my priorities. There are a bunch of vendors at Indie Untangled that I want to try out. I haven't been able to squish their yarns yet, so this is a great opportunity for me to do so. And last but not least, when it comes to New York sheep and wool, I will be going to the barns first. Last year, I didn't even make it to the barns. As I mentioned, I'm in my farm yarn era. I am really passionate about animal welfare, so I want to go see the animals. And I'm going to prioritize that next year. I'm going to go to the barns first and see how my little animal friends are doing, because I want to see the sheep, I want to see the alpacas, I want to see the llamas. There is a great variety of animals at New York Sheep and Wool. So if you are interested in exploring different fibers, it's a great place to do that. So that is all of the yarn, all of the books and project bags I got last year at Rhinebeck. If you have been to Rhinebeck, I would love for you to share your experience down in the comments below. Help somebody else out who may be going for the first time this year. In other news, big life update this week. If you have been following the channel from the beginning, you know that my husband and I adventure across the country in a 30-foot Airstream. We decided Sunday that we were going to sell the Airstream. So we decided on Sunday to sell it. By Tuesday, we had a potential buyer, and I have spent the last 2 days emptying the Airstream. It is amazing the amount of junk that can accumulate in a trailer in the few times a year that you're in it. It all came out, it got dumped into my dining room, and now the house is a little bit destroyed from all of the Airstream stuff. We are downsizing. We are getting a smaller rig. We are currently in a 30-foot Airstream, and that maxes us out for most national parks. National parks often have a site limit of 25 feet. So we are going to be getting a smaller rig. I'm super excited about it. This is something we've talked about for the past year, of getting a smaller rig so we could go on wilder adventures. So stay tuned. I will be showing you the new rig as soon as we get it. My first and only concern about the smaller rig is, where am I going to stash the yarn I pick up on all the local yarn stores I visit? We'll find out. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss my next knitting adventure. I am a brand new channel here on YouTube, so liking, commenting, and subscribing helps my channel to grow, because it tells YouTube that what I'm doing here is worth watching and they'll serve my videos to other viewers. So I really do appreciate all of the support. I know the internet is a loud and busy place, and I truly appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next adventure.